Hi, Henry. Thanks for being here. So I'm Francesca Melluzzi, and I'm a somatic coach. And I've been working with Henry for just over a year now. And we thought we would do this interview because Henry was recently on a BBC documentary talking about ADHD and his time and what it was like, his experience with ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Henry, do you want to just introduce yourself first and just kind of say a bit about, what brought you to coaching? What brought you to the somatic coaching? And what was it like to really talk publicly about your experience of having ADHD on the BBC documentary?
Yeah. So my name's Henry, mother, I like the yogurt, so there you go. And I came to see Francesca about just over a year ago because of the documentary that was going on. I kind of got this opportunity, really didn't think I would, to talk about my ADHD and to do a deep dive into it. And I found myself realizing that I really was struggling with my ADHD and I didn't fully understand what it was or how to handle it. And I, first of all, wanted, when speaking to Chris Packham and the team and stuff like that, to have something to say that, or have a base understanding of myself at least, but also for my own well-being, because I found myself really struggling and being, something we spoke about a lot, quite ashamed of a lot of the aspects of it, and a little bit desperate at times. So I reached out to Francesca through another organisation, and started then.
And was that the first time that you'd ever heard of somatic coaching? What made you curious about somatic coaching? What did you think about it before you joined?
I'm very honest, I had no idea what it was. We saw you on kind of list. We thought you looked great, and you ticked many boxes of things I wanted to deal with, like kind of how I feel, like the emotions of me and kind of my thought processes and stuff. And I read the word somatic incorrectly. That's how little I knew about it. I didn't know what the word meant. So it was really introduced to me when I started working with you.
Yeah. And what did you, because one of the main aspects that we deal with somatic coaches is really understanding about how to get out of the head and shame, which can often be associated with ADHD, with autism. And we really look at how to get back into the body. How was that for you? And some of those those first few weeks of working with me, can you remember what it was like to
I do.
come out of your head and into your body a bit more?
I remember, I'm not ashamed to say it, the first session we had, we did some a somatic session for quite a lot of it, and I was in floods of tears. I'm not sure if you remember that, but I was, and I think that was many things. It was a realization of like, oh, this is really good, and kind of a relief feeling, but also going from my head where I've been locked in that way my whole life, really, or from a very young age, into my body and allowing myself, with help from you, to feel emotions and to confront them is the wrong word, I suppose, but kind of sit with them at least. And it was just this wave of emotion. And I blubbed my eyes out for a good hour. But it was not in a bad way, in a fantastic way it was cathartic. I remember that. And then it became, each week we did it, it became a bit easier to find and to kind of sit down with the emotions. Whereas before it was like walking into a full canteen of emotions and not being able to find a seat and being a bit overwhelmed by it. Eventually more and more seats kind of popped up and I could find it and then be with it much easier. And you helped me with that. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that was a good way to describe it, about being able to sit with emotions, because it's not yet been part of our education system. So this, a lot of the stuff we're doing is around emotional education, and this is what we've been doing over the past year. And a big piece of that has really been around the self-compassion piece. We'll come to that in a minute. Can you remember what your expectations were about the coaching, the somatic coaching?
Or
did you have
expectations? Sorry?
Did you have any expectations?
No, I didn't have expectations. I was just really desperate and I was in quite a bad place. And I just kind of wanted help. and someone to kind of understand. And I'd had therapy in the past, and that hadn't really provided me with what I wanted. So that's part of the reason I thought try something maybe a little bit different. Um, yeah, and it was fantastic. So yeah, I didn't have any expectations. I just really wanted to talk and work with someone that would understand me on a kind of human level, and also help me to help me. That was a big thing, and that was something I did see in the advert. So yeah, that's one thing I did expect.
And that's the way that I like to work with people who are ready to take responsibility. And that's something that I can say you absolutely did from day one. Yeah, and a lot of people talk about with ADHD struggling with a background hum of shame, in a sense of I'm not enough, I'm always getting it wrong. Yeah, I'm curious. It'd be good to share with people listening to this. How did shame kind of show up in your life before we coached? I was
I
coaching.
think it was a knee-jerk reaction, really. It was kind of just part of my existence, and I didn't even label it as shame. It was a thought pattern of, and it was everywhere because I was diagnosed not late, but later on in school. So I kind of gone through my whole school system, feeling the shame of not being enough. And then when did have ADHD, was diagnosed, sorry, I still felt the same thing, and it was just beating myself up about it. But now, through work with you, I'm giving it a name. We'd call it the pain body. It's Hector, and you start to spot these patterns, and that's what I've done. And now I'm forgetting what the question was. It was just started talking like a runaway train. But yeah,
you were right. You were talking about shame. And then you talked about the pain body. That's wrote The Power of Now. He talks about this kind of separate entity in us that tends to feed on pain and negativity, and kind of seeing. So we really, our sessions are also about going beyond the sort of needing to fix ourselves loop, which you can get. So it's our sessions, it's more mentoring. It's about going beyond our stories. And you were talking, giving your pain body a name. So to be able to
hungry Hector.
yeah. And then, one of the biggest things that we work with is self-compassion. And I'm curious about when I first introduced that concept to you, can you remember what ideas came up in your mind around that idea?
It was, I remember finding it very alien. It was odd, and it felt forced. If my whole life, my reaction was kind of shame or self-belittlement, if that's a word, but you know what I mean. And that was just the routine I had, the kind of subconscious pattern of just clicking shame button. And then when you introduced this new button of self-compassion, it did feel odd. I couldn't quite work it out, but little by little, the more I kept hitting the compassion button, the more natural it felt. And genuinely, after a few months, my kind of go-to is not to press the shame button now. I'm still there, and I'm still aware of it, and I do it. And that's when you catch yourself and you think, well, I'm going to switch consoles now and start hitting the self-compassion button. But at first, it was something I definitely had to teach myself or remind myself to do. So yeah, to answer your question, it was weird because I also wasn't aware that I wasn't being self-compassionate until talking to you. So
it can just be, it's like this inner voice that can kind of pull you down, it keeps pulling you down. And then how would you describe like the new voice inside of you of self-compassion? How would you describe that?
How would I describe him? I think it's switching from being inside and locked in your own head and this kind of echoey doom voice to zipping out. We did an exercise about light, feeling a kind of light going from your head down into your body and then up and down. And I would describe it as kind of that light elevating from in your head to kind of being out there. So its voice isn't different, but what I see and what I notice and what I try and focus on has changed. It's a perspective thing. Yeah. So that's what's changed. And there's it's a boring cliche, I suppose, but half glass empty, half glass full thing. But I feel now through a lot of work, I'm more of a half glass full guy in terms of my relationships with others, how I see the world, and how I see myself, I suppose, more importantly. And yeah, that was hard. I forgot the question again. My lord, I'm all over the place. But yeah.
With self-compassion, like when you do, because we all experience setbacks. We all, disappointments. We all experience getting things, not working out. So now with that understanding of self-compassion, could you maybe give us an example of like a time recently where there was a bit of a setback and you were able to maybe switch that voice and just kind of switch up how you dealt with that?
Yeah. Well, we spoke about this in the last session, but I ran an open mic comedy night for work, and I was very happy with how it started, and then the interval came and I had to kind of open back up the show, and already we had worked on shifting my focus from in my head and what I think about myself and my content and how I portray to shifting it to what I can be, and who I can kind of show it to. And the first half went really well, and then I opened up the second half, and it's safe to say I was not that great, or not as great as I wanted to be. And instantly, I think my kind of monkey brain went to hit the shame button, but then I caught myself, and I thought, well, I've learnt there, and actually those guys loved it. And I've started the show, and I've introduced the next person, and I caught myself from where I could have sat there for as long as 2 days and thought, oh, what an idiot, that's so embarrassing, and beating yourself up. I reframed it, and I acknowledged the feeling of, well, that was little bit rough, but then I moved forwards and I thought, well, that was a thing that's happened now. And yeah, and it was again, the light was sucked from in here rattling around this kind of horrible doom cage into there in the moment and where it can take me, one foot in front of the other. So that was the most recent example. But
Was also,
to be honest with you, not to shoehorn it or anything, but it is, I found it has become a kind of an hour by hour thing. The more work we did, before I'd have a bad week and then he'd remind me and I'd start trying to do that again. But the longer we've worked, most of my thoughts now are centered around trying to reframe and be compassionate and stuff like that. So that was the biggest example I've just given, but there's been examples today, for example. So yeah.
And it's not, sometimes it doesn't always work. It's not like it's not always a mindset thing. It's about, a lot of the work we've done is about getting you to actually be in your body and feel safe. And also it's worth mentioning, this was your first ever comedy night you were opening. So it was and the fact that you were able to turn it around in the second half.
I was good. And it could have been bad. So yeah.
Okay. And how, in terms of, if you think back now to how you were before you did the BBC documentary, so just to mention, it's a BBC iPlayer. Do you want to mention it? Is it some BBC?
Yeah. It's still on BBC iPlayer. I think it's going to be there a bit. It's called Inside Our Minds, ADHD. And I was one of two people just to talk about their experience with ADHD. And the wonderful nuance of it is that I, as well as Joe, the other contributor, got to make a film that explained what it was like to kind of have ADHD. And it was fantastic. And it is on iPlayer, so there you go.
And the feedback that you got after it, because that's something that we talked about, wasn't it? There was some fear about really, going public with this is ADHD. And we kind of tried to help you to prepare and had to go and watch the screening. I remember before you watched it with your family. What's been the feedback from showing that vulnerability? What's the feedback you have received since then?
Overwhelmingly positive. And that's, again, as you said, something we worked on before was kind of the anticipation. But really positive. And I've had some wonderful conversations with people who have had ADHD or have loved ones with ADHD. You have a bit of a better understanding as a result of the whole Inside Our Minds team's work. And there was stuff that I was scared to share that I ended up sharing, was very nervous about, that actually was something that landed very well with a lot of people. So that's nice. It's nice to think that this conversation is being had now, and my vulnerability may have led to vulnerability of others. So yeah, that's a feeling that I'm still kind of getting used to. I'm very proud of that whole process.
Good. And it takes a lot of courage. And I think there's a whole conversation piece around men, young men, and having these conversations about mental health and around anxiety and around ADHD. So yeah, I think it's going to really inspire people, to see that. So it was reflecting on some of the work that we did as well around psychoeducation, the nervous system. We really looked at kind of the nervous system and the role in the brain. I was wondering what ideas throughout our time, can you remember some of the ideas that have really stayed with you?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, I rein myself quite a lot.
Oh, that's
It's-
Tara Brach. That's do you want to explain what that is?
yeah. So kind of recognizing an emotion, spotting it. That's kind of going into a canteen and spotting the emotion that you want to kind of that you need to be with, or that it would help to be with, I should say, and then kind of allowing that, because that's something I always struggled with before. Was I was pushed those emotions away, either through distracting or self-medication of some form, or just doing something else and never confronting it, and that doesn't go away. So allowing it and then investigating in a nurturing way. And I think that's something I do quite a lot, and for a while that was every single day. I wouldn't know what to call it, Francesca, but that thing about the lights, it's almost meditation, I feel, but it's kind of, it is and it isn't. It's a form of, maybe, I don't know, with some kind of mantra-y stuff, and sitting in a moment, and then, but then again, sitting with yourself in your body and not fighting thoughts, letting it be like thoughts like clouds,
Yeah.
That one looks like a salamander, letting it float on. So that's something I do as well.
It integrates this mentoring that we've done together. It integrates all different aspects. It integrates the nervous system, lifestyle, self-reflection, psychoeducation, and elements of spirituality without dogma. So we talk about connecting to the light, so connecting to that inner light rather than that darkness is what we talk about. And I was curious, like, how has self-reflection become easier since you've practiced self-compassion?
Yes, yeah, because before I kind of properly tried to give myself some compassion, there'd be a judgment upon kind of when I would try and reflect, have some self-reflection and stuff, it would be judgment, and it would be shaming, and it would be finger pointing at yourself. So I didn't like doing that. So it was hard to be in a moment and to kind of go through that. But through self-compassion and kind of the splitting, there was that exercise, not sorry to give loads away, but like splitting down myself into two different age groups and having them as kind of two different almost identities or sides of my own identity, has been really, really, it's getting easier. Yeah. Or I can definitely learn a lot more about myself the more I do it. And yeah, I'd say self-compassion was the key.
I agree with that. I have to
Open
say,
level doors.
I was late diagnosed ADHD, as you know, Henry, and dyslexia. And for me, I spent years and years in therapy, using years in studying and training to really help myself, and had this. I think this is what a lot of people struggle with, this idea that I need to fix myself. And for me, it was that self-compassion. And the way I would describe self-compassion is basically that the kindness that I extend to everyone around me, turning that back towards myself. So
Yeah.
Voice, changing the behavior, all of those things. So you're reducing the shame. And whether you have ADHD or autism, in a way, it's irrelevant. If you're human, quite often the core human wound, if you like, is that I'm not enough. And so the antidote to that is this self-compassion piece, which I really believe that, like you said, it is the key. And I really believe it can really minimize suffering, and that's really what we're trying to focus on. We also looked at a lot of practical stuff, so about other sort of concepts that might seem even so, like you said, self-compassion isn't really foreign to a lot of people. But we started off with the very basics. We really looked at your lifestyle. And they were, so we looked at that as a foundation, and we were really looking at getting your healthy foundation. So we looked at diet, nutrition, we looked at how you were sleeping, we looked at a focus on emotional resilience. Can you share with people how did that influence, how has that changed for you over the year? So to just remind people that the documentary was filmed before you started the mentoring. So now, a year and a bit on, how those things, so working on nutrition, looking at diet, looking at spirituality to a certain extent.
It was because I think that our work together kind of simultaneous with the start of the documentary and stuff. And that was something I really appreciated about working with you, was, and it ties in with shame. I was really ashamed of how I was taking care of myself, because I wasn't. And those basic things were something I was hiding. And through talking to you and kind of opening up, we acknowledged that together. And it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? And I wasn't taking care of any of that. The only green I was consuming in my life was ice cream. And so I fixed that. And that then it helped me with kind of more of my emotions and how I was feeling. And actually a few of the things I was feeling was actually just because my body was screaming out for vitamins probably. So you helped me with that. You helped me on so many levels. And I think there was a stepping stone of kind of, you get the basics down first, then you can start to look at kind of some of the more deeper stuff. And you did equip me with some tools for me to do that myself, because I saw you every week. And of course the other, how 7 days of the week minus an hour was all me. And in the past, because it wasn't the first time someone had pointed out that I don't eat well enough or sleep well enough. But you helped me give some tools to kind of maintain that through the week. So that made a huge difference.
Wasn't it? It's always been quite practical as well. So we do look at other aspects, like emotional resilience. We look at education, but we try and keep it practical. So things that you can do on a day-to-day basis that will make a difference. I'm curious, like, if you can compare Henry a year ago to Henry now, what's the most important difference?
I was thinking about this the other day, but I think number one, you kind of mentioned it earlier, I speak to myself in a different language now, and how I kind of, that self-talk, and that then reflects to how I look out at life has changed. There's a kind of growth element to it, whereas before, and actually no, I can answer it in more simple terms. I was surviving before, but now I feel like I'm actually kind of somewhat living, and I've changed. It's nuts. I'm not just saying this for the sake of this. My life and who I am and how I am has changed 100% since starting working with you. Before working with you, I was waking up at 1 PM. I was miserable at my job, and and I wasn't taking care of myself. But now I'm only doing jobs I love. I actually like myself now, which is nice, and I'm taking care of myself. So the comparison is stark. I was talking to my dad about this the other day. It's nuts, it's a good thing.
Really, and the thing that I admire the most is your courage, because, like you said, those first few sessions where we were really helping you to get in touch with what was really going on, and it's not therapy, but it was just connecting with feeling directly. That takes an enormous amount of patience and courage, and the fact that you've done that, and then you kept showing up even though it was hard. It's really to be congratulated.
Thank you. But
did the work, you really engaged with it all, and that's the point, is that this kind of work, any kind of coaching or any kind of mentoring, if it's going to be effective, it takes the person, the client, it's a co-creation. They have to want to do it. You did the work. So for someone who's just been diagnosed and they're kind of feeling like a sense of being buried in shame, what would you say to them?
What would I say to them? I suppose what would I say to myself? Let it out.
Mm.
Uh, because it doesn't get better on its own. And it is a loop. And I think it can get better, and it does. And it's some really simple things that feel quite hard to begin with, but get easier, that can make a drastic difference. And it's it's like, yeah, it's weird. The analogy I'm thinking, it's one bit of science I know. It's called atom decay. And it's where one atom falls off this ledge basically, and it knocks everything else on. A domino effect is what I'm trying to say. My lord, I went weird with it, but it is that, because once I learnt to sit with my emotions, that unlocked so many other different things, and then it keeps growing, and it is scary. Don't get me wrong, but good things lie in scary places, and when it feels scary, it probably means it means something. So, yeah, that's what
Given,
I'd say.
given what
Without
you learn now, what would you advise someone to do? What steps would you advise someone to take? Practical
Mm,
steps they could take. So,
practical steps. You can reach out to someone. You can talk to someone like Francesca. That's good. I think, yeah. For me, it was through talking to you that helped me understand what I needed, what was going on. Because as I said before, I was just surviving. You know.
I guess I would, if someone
Yeah.
had the resources and was really
Mm,
dedicated to wanting to grow and to learn and
mhm,
like, work on that emotional
mm,
education piece and get out of that shame loop, I would suggest somatic coaching. So anything that gets someone back into the body, because
mhm.
talking therapy has its limits. Like, it's
Yeah.
really helpful, but it can, there's, for me, that's the missing piece. But then I was just thinking, if they don't have the resources, then I would say look on YouTube, try and find any kind of practices that are getting you to connect more into your body.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think as well, like stuff like Pilates and yoga, anything to get into your body. That's one thing you taught me, was just exercise. Once you're
Yeah.
in your body, you can feel that. So yeah, that's a big thing as well.
Yeah. And there are loads of different ways to do that. And I think another thing I was thinking is that, for example, there's talking therapies is another example. Someone could call their doctor and speak to their doctor.
Mhm,
But yeah, if you can speak to a trained somatic coach, someone who can get
mhm.
your body and really has all of those, the kind of practical aspects to offer, would be really helpful.
Yeah.
What about, yeah, so what about you going forward? What about in a kind of, in your professional life and your well-being? How do you see yourself going forward now as a result?
Well, yeah, I want to. So I'm a presenter. That's what I'm setting out to be, and that's what I've set out to be. Really, around the same time, starting talking to you a year ago. But I want to. I want to kind of help people, and I want to use the kind of the abilities I know I have to help others, kind of give people a voice, and to maybe share some stuff that I know that can help others. So I'm also hoping to work with people with ADHD and those who don't, to help kind of spread awareness of that. That's the dream, and that's what I'm trying to make happen at the moment. So yeah, it's an ongoing process, but I feel I have the tools now, which is nice.
I feel like, and that's for me, again, one of the keys is working with, you have lived experience. So you have that empathy piece, you have that empathy, you have that compassion, and you have that desire to want to help, to other people in your career. So you're utilizing
Mm.
skills in that way. So I'm sure it's going to be very
Yeah.
successful.
Well, thank you, and you too. So yeah, no, it's all very exciting.
Thanks for the interview today, Henry. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
And if anyone wants to find the BBC documentary, it's on BBC iPlayer, and it's, what was it called?
Inside Our Minds ADHD, or Inside Our ADHD Minds.
Okay. And they can.
Chris Peckham. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you, Francesca, for everything.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.